Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I wanted to do something different. I'll be doing a podcast with a friend of mine, his name is Edward, and we're gonna be talking about level design, production, how you can pretty much do road mapping or set up deadlines for your projects and for level designs, a little bit of Unreal Engine, Unity, the industry, his projects and my projects, pretty much a little bit of everything. So make sure to watch the full video and obviously like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of the video, and obviously if you want to support the channel, make sure to check out my Patreon and my Ko-Fi down in the description. I'll see you guys at the end. Hey, what's up, Edward? Welcome here. How you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me here to this podcast, Gabriel. I'm super excited to finally have a conversation with you through this video format to ask a lot of questions about what's going on. So there's a lot to talk about here.
I know, I agree. There's a lot of things we got to talk, actually. Edward and I, we've been friends for a while now. You know, we're always busy with the industry in general, and we never had a chance to do a podcast before. So this is like a first for both of us. So we're really excited to be here and to talk about level design, about production, and about a lot of
Edward,
things.
start it off.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how do you started in the industry? Tell us a little bit about your role in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is super funny. And I just want to quickly tag about the fact that, we've been encountering each other in person so many times that we never had an actual proper chance to sit down. Fun fact, last year or earlier this year, both of us ended up at GDC, saw each other, we said
Yeah.
hi, and then we only until we came back home were we able to actually have a proper conversation, right? So I just always thought it was funny the timing about us just making content and just doing what we were doing, right? And so I say this because my background is I originally am an engineer. I never thought I would be in the game industry. I always thought that was kind of mythical. No, you can't make games. That's kind of too difficult, or it's not profitable. And I think that was kind of the fear of well, if I'm going to spend time working on something, I want to make sure that I'm productive about it, right? And so what happened was I ended up doing a career pivot where I went from nuclear engineering into programming, and then I started making games. And then I realized I take forever making games. I'm kind of a lazy person, And so I had this question of what can I do to make games faster, right? And so, and I'm going to probably talk about this a lot, but deadlines, not peer pressure, but the pressure of following a deadline is the number one key to finishing anything, right? And so I remember being in a position where I only had 4 months to launch a video game to see if I can make some type of profit out of it. And that's kind of where DodgeKing was born. And then with those lessons, I was like, why am I not sharing these lessons, right? So I started a YouTube channel called Fast Forward My Game. And now I do consultation services where developers who want to make games as quickly as possible can go ahead and book a call, and we can just go ahead and talk about how to properly design, make your game more appealing, and also just make it within 90 days or less, provided that the scope is small. So that was my background on how I started the YouTube channel as a whole. But I remember you as a whole, you as well. You were a developer. I remember seeing a bunch of your projects back in the day, and then a year ago you started launching videos, and I was like, this guy has some crazy content and editing skills, right? So how did you get into it?
So that's a really interesting question. So I would say I've always admired YouTube. For me, making content for people out there, it was something that I always love, and I wanted to do something like this, but I never saw it as a hobby or as a job. It was more like something that I saw it was far away from my scope, I would say. But I remember on my previous job, I was doing mobile games, but then after that, I started doing some solo projects. So I started, and we can talk about this more later in the podcast, but I started doing an Uncharted project and then a Spider-Man project. And after that process, I learned a ton. And I was like, should I just make a video of this and put it out there for people to see it? It's my first thought, and I just wanted for people to see it. I never considered it as a YouTube, hobby or something. I just wanted people to see my project. So after making that video, I got a lot of feedback, a lot of positive comments, and I got motivated, and I started making a lot of videos just about my projects. It all started with the projects, and then after that I pivoted and started doing videos about tutorials, about level design tools that maybe a lot of people don't know about because probably they're not using that on a daily basis. But for me, for my current studio, I try to use a lot of these tools, and I know they're really helpful, and a lot of people don't know about them. So I just started making videos and started putting out there for people to learn and how they can pretty much speed up their process as level designers. So again, it started as something as for one video as a project, and then it's more like a hobby, or maybe a little bit more as a hobby right now. I try to do it maybe as consistent as possible, but yeah, I as if I can share, that knowledge to people out there, it makes me happy. So yeah, that's why I do it.
And I just want to also say for anybody that doesn't know, I remember when Gabriel made the Uncharted prototype, he posted it on LinkedIn and in 1 week got 23,000 impressions on it. And and I was like, Gabriel, like you cooked, right? Not only was the project like high quality and it looked really great and everything, but it just impacted a lot of people that were like very interested in one, how the project looked like and everything, how it
Hmm.
played. But the focus of it was talking about your level design. And so I remember, and I think maybe we had this conversation before, but I remember either there was like a meetup that we did with developers, and I was like, Gabriel, you have to make content more often. What is going like that? That was kind of insane. And so I guess like the one thing that I kind of wanted to ask was like when you started the channel at first, right? Did you have any expectations? Because like you said, you wanted to share your project, how things worked, maybe the behind the scenes such. And there's that consistency part that like you just mentioned, hey, like I want to do it more consistently because at first it was like a
Yeah.
hobbyist approach. But like when you started launching content as a whole, did you ever find out like, you know what, this is something that I had expectations for. I want to reach like certain milestones with this, or again, where you just kind of like, oh, let's see how far it goes.
Yeah, I think it started more like something casual. It was like, let's see how it goes. I feel like you never have like that in mind that you're gonna get a lot of views. It's more like you upload a video and let's see how it goes at first. After I got like a lot of comments, a lot of positive feedback, I started, setting up, making it more as a priority. I started making more videos, more content because I actually enjoy the process of making videos. And just like you mentioned, the Uncharted project, I mean, I had so much fun working on that project, and I learned a ton. It was rough because I only had like 2 weeks to make the level, and through the process, I learned a ton. And after getting that positive feedback, I got motivated. And right now, for me, this is like I said, like it's more like a hobby. But I try to be consistent. I try to make videos for people out there, and I treat it with respect. I try to be as consistent as possible to try to help people out there. So yeah,
Also, briefly, you mentioned 2 weeks. That's a deadline. That's the
yeah,
number one tool we use
like
to
you
speed up
mentioned
the
at the
process,
beginning.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So,
yeah.
and I just want to briefly tackle upon that. Like, with the 2 weeks in particular, was that self-imposed, or did you like sign up for like a contest? Was there something that made you say, "Oh, I need to get this done within 2 weeks," particularly?
Yeah, it was more like a week. It was first 1 week because that was the deadline to deliver the level, pretty much the project. And then I dedicated another extra week because I wanted to polish some stuff. I wanted to add more like scripting events, more level design concepts. So I tried to set it up for like 2 weeks, but at first it was just 1 week. So I had to pretty much use a lot of techniques and tricks, here and there to pretty much speed up the process because deliver a level like that in 1 week it's really rough. I remember I dedicated more like 10 hours per day because I wanted to deliver like a really good level. I wanted to challenge myself to do something different or something interesting. So yeah, it was 1 week at first, and then I wanted to polish it up for one extra week just to add more details here and there.
And one more time, was that week because of a game jam, or was that like you just said, "I'm
It
gonna
was
set this goal and go for it"?
Yeah, so during that time, actually, I was taking a course from CDMA, which is like an academy for like developers out there. So I was taking a level design course. I think it was like a 10 weeks class. So it was the last week of that class, and we had to pretty much make a level from everything you've learned through the previous weeks. So I wanted to make something different, and I remember when I was working on the level at first, I was doing the sketches, the planning, and I knew that 1 week wasn't a lot. I knew it from the first moment that 1 week it was going to be rough. So what I did actually, I took some of the levels that I did the previous weeks, and I put them up here in this level, and I made some changes, some iterations, so it fit the narrative and the level. So I doing that, it also actually helped me a lot, like cut a lot of the level design and speed up the process basically. So these tiny details, they're really important because you need to do this in the industry. You, like you mentioned, deadlines are really out there in the industry. They're really important. Making games is really expensive, so you don't want to take a month to make a level. So doing this kind of stuff can help you speed up the process and deliver a block out for you to for people to play test it and give you feedback and keep iterating. You don't want to stay on a level for a month. So That's what I
Absolutely.
actually did, and I learned a ton doing that actually. And again, I was really happy that I was able to do it in just 1 week and a half, more or less, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, I mean, this is why again, it's the real terminology behind this is Parkinson's law. And so it's again, if you think about homework, and you actually just said it was kind of like for a homework assignment when you think about it, and I think that's the perfect example because
Yeah.
if you don't turn in your homework on time, you're going to get a lower grade. You may
Yeah.
not even get qualifications for that, and then you're just in trouble. So you have that pressure, that stress of like, oh, I gotta finish this, right? And let's be honest, right? Like homework or any assignment that has a deadline feels uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
I really do think, and not to stereotype or put people in a category here, but like a lot of developers, from what I've seen, it's really fun to make games. It's an art piece at the end of the day. It's something that in a way kind of fulfills that need of like creating art and like fulfilling the creation process as a whole. But
Right.
then if you were to impose deadlines, pressure, uncomfortability, right, you kind of take away the joy of development, right? And I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, like development shouldn't be fun. Like, no, yeah, of course, there's going to be those ups and downs, but you can
Hmm.
clearly see just how important it is whenever you just have that pressure. Like, I need to get this done. I need to get my grade. I need to get that certification. I need to launch my game. So and that's something we talk a lot about here on Fast Forward, where basically it's like, hey, like always try to find like an external way to kind of push your game. Like internally, if you can build the habits to say, oh, February I'm launching my game and I'm gonna, listen to that and like do everything possible to make that happen, that's great. But it becomes easier when you sign up for a booth, when you sign up for a showcase, when you have a
Hmm.
festival coming up, when you
Because
have
you
a
have the
homework
pressure.
assignment,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
game jam. Like there's so many
Yeah.
ways to actually just like push it
Mm.
forward.
Yeah.
And I really do think you harped on that. And that's a really great assessment of like, okay, I had a week, I dedicated an extra for polishing and everything, but
Hmm.
that's not enough time, but you
Yeah.
still did it. And so you can quickly see that you'll have like a lot of sacrifices that you have to make, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess like one more thing I really wanted to ask was like, what has been the most interesting thing you've sacrificed when developing any of your projects, any of your videos, anything that, required like a great amount of effort within a small amount of time?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say apart from time, 'cause you're dedicating a lot of time. Like I mentioned, for the Uncharted level, I dedicated almost 8 hours, 10 hours a day. That's a lot of time. So I wasn't able to, spend time with my family during that week. And again, I know there's a lot of like, I mean, there's a lot of like, the crunch aspect in the industry. That's not good. It's not healthy. So if you can prevent that as much as possible, I recommend that. Don't do crunch. But for me, this was something really important, and I wanted to dedicate it like this extra time because this was really valuable for me. And I can talk to this a little bit more later in the podcast. But for me, the passion you have for a project or for a game, it pushes me further, to do more. So I would say, yeah, I sacrificed a lot of time with my family during those 2 weeks, and with friends. But it was because I wanted to deliver this project. I wanted to deliver something good for me that I feel proud of myself. Even today, I go back to that video and to the project, and I see it, and I get really happy, because I learned a ton, and it actually helped me with a lot of the networking I've done, and a lot of connections. A lot of people have seen it, and it has helped me a lot. So at the end, yeah, I sacrificed time and some time with my family and friends, but I feel like I'm really proud of what I did, and I'm really, it was worth it. So yeah.
And it's really funny because after you posted specifically the Spider-Man one, which I really
Yeah.
want to talk about here in a second.
That was a cool project, actually. I
I
did enjoy
asked
that
you,
one.
I remember asking you a billion questions. How did you do it? What assets did you use? How much time did you take? And actually, one of the earliest videos that I made was called Powerful Habits to Make Your Games Quickly. And it's super funny because I asked you specifically, like, how did you get the game to look so clean? Prototype, right? Like, it's not like always super polished. Like, you have like a lot of basic models and such, but like, it felt like an experience, right? And so, one of the things that I always advertise is like, hey guys, you should always do what's called asset pooling, which is where you just grab assets and again, just try to recycle as many things as possible, provided that you
Mhm.
can. And that idea actually just came from you because like I had many projects where I was always recycling, but I only exclusively recycled from items that were like from my previous projects, right?
Yeah.
In your case, you just grab whatever was available and just again made it clean, made it look good. You added some colors, some textures and such just to make sure like you had that like game feel to go with it. And so
Mhm.
that's like one of the lessons that always sticked with me. So I owe you credit for some of the production advice I give out because it's true. Like you became an
Yeah.
example of like how you made your projects, right? And so the Spider-Man one is super interesting, which we can talk in just a bit here. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I just want to shout you out for that. So if you ever wanted to take credit for like production advice, you're one of the examples that I look at. So it's really good stuff.
Nah, Edward over here, he has a lot of like his content is more about like deadlines and how you can pretty much like speed up production and do great projects out there. And he can tell us a little bit about his project soon. He's game DodgeKing, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you actually, because I mean I see you as a solo developer, but have you worked with level designers before on the project? And if so, how was your experience and what you learned through the process?
Yeah, this is funny because I am technically a solo developer. I'm working on another game that I'm going to
Right.
announce super soon.
Yeah.
But I do consultation calls. Like I make sure I help other developers kind of write down their entire pipeline, itemize their tasks, try to like get everything necessary that you need so that you can launch your game as quickly as possible,
Hmm.
right? What's interesting though is most of the clients that I work with tend to be solo, so they're covering all bases possible. And the level design part is like it's a huge aspect. It's its own kind of like area, right? And so there's kind of like two ways to answer this. The first one is like, oh, when we talk about level design, and maybe you can correct me with this because this is what I learned from you in particular, where
Hmm.
level design isn't like an art; it's just how to elevate the player experience, specifically the gameplay using
Hmm.
environments, right? Going to the Spider-Man level, and I was talking to a client about this literally the other day, where I said, if I gave you a Spider-Man character to play with, right? How would the game play? And he says, oh, I'd probably swing around. I'd probably do some stealth. I'd probably do like sneaky combos and everything. And I said, okay, imagine playing Spider-Man without a single building. Like it's just an infinite like plain terrain. There's nothing to swing about. Is it gonna be Spider-Man? And the answer
Hmm.
is no, right? And so what you made me realize is, yeah, level design is like super critical because again, it elevates the gameplay of like the
Hmm.
experience that you're trying to go through.
Never.
Uncharted is all about like the action adventure, the quick time events, the sneaky areas, how you do movement. Super Mario 64 in particular, right? Like it's known as like one of the coolest 3D platformers, but like it's because you can do wall jumps, you can do all these cool things. And so if you remove level design, you have nothing. You don't have a proper
Hmm.
gameplay loop. So in the design principles, we try to see, what are your main mechanics, what do you need, and more importantly, how do you integrate levels to elevate that experience. So when I'm with a solo developer, that's kind of like what we talk about, right? But interestingly enough, before I started doing like solo game dev, or rather like where I'm currently at, I actually used to work at a game studio where I used to work with a lot of really talented artists and developers and programmers. And we just didn't necessarily have like a level designer, mainly because we weren't working on like a giant game. The only like
Hmm.
game we worked on was like a infinite runner, so it wasn't too much of a level design discussion. But regardless, you can still see just how important it is to really like pay attention to environment, colors, saturation, where to go, location, instructions, all through environmental storytelling,
Hmm.
which again your channel covers a lot about. Actually, one of the most recent I actually recommended one of your videos and one of my videos about how to instruct players to actually go somewhere without any instructions just by the environment. So that was a
Uh-huh.
really cool insight to read. But that also leads me to my next question, which is why did you end up focusing on level design of all there's everything. We got programming, art, modeling, there's so many aspects.
Hmm.
Why level design? Like why is that your niche?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would say, I mean, it all started back in college. I went to Full Sail, and in Full Sail, you only have like three game development classes or bachelors. So there was game arts, game development, and game design. So I only had like three options there, and when I was considering it, like what am I gonna do here? I'm bad at math, so I'm like programming. Maybe it's not a thing. I do enjoy art though, so I was between game art and game design. But in my head, when I was considering that decision, I was like, game design. I can pretty much do a little bit of everything. I can work with artists, I can work with programmers, so I'm like in the middle of everything. So that's why I went to game design, and then during the game design bachelor's degree, I took a level design class. And man, I fell in love with the class. We had a month to build a level, and we collaborated with other students, and I learned a ton. I had a lot of fun doing scripting events and doing the level design concepts. So at the end, I fell in love with the class, and I just decided to go with the role. And the more I practice it, the more I enjoy it. It's one of those things that you never stop learning. There's always like new concepts out there. You can always improve what you do. There's a lot of iterations, so you never get bored. I'm really passionate of what I do, and I love level design. So yeah, I went into level design.
So interesting. In your current role, right? You are a level designer at where you currently work at, so
Yeah.
you can explain more details of that if you want. But like, what has been the most impactful design choice you've made in the upcoming game? And for those
Mm.
that don't know, Gabriel's currently working on this really cool game called Gate Zero. Don't know if you guys heard of it. It's very marketable. A lot of people are talking about it, and he's
Yeah.
one of the level designers behind that.
I'll put the link into the descriptions for you guys to see like the trailer and gameplay. But yeah, I work for this company called Bible X Games, and we're working on Gate Zero, which is an action adventure game. Uh, and we pretty much, we try to build like open world environments, and I've learned a ton because I'm used to make linear levels. So for me, this was a new transition, new skills, new concepts that I had to apply, and I have learned a ton. And to answer your question, one of the things that has been like really challenging is just to make those critical decisions between like how is this level going to be, are we going to make it linear, are we going to make it more open world, are we going to have like some landmarks or POIs here or there, like where are we going to make the quests, taking those decisions matter, and we have to communicate with all the departments. We have people from the art team, from producers to programmers, so communication, it's a really important role here. And taking those critical decisions matter because, like I mentioned, deadlines and production, it costs money, so we want to make those decisions as quick as possible, but so that they matter later on the project. Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm not too sure if Bible X is considered AAA, maybe AA, right? Because like I don't know their budget, but
Hmm.
there are a lot of investments going into that game. I'm very aware that you guys pour a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
Which makes me kind of realize like, yeah, every time you have like an employee or someone that's working for something, that's an asset, you want to make sure that they're investing, that they give value back to the company or the product as a whole. And so, I don't know too much about like how long or like how many things are going on level design wise in the game and such. But I guess like, is there any type of like sneak peek or type of secrets you can share about like, hey guys, did you know in this game you can do this, or is that something that's like still NDA? We can't talk about it just yet.
Mm. I mean, there's not much I can say. We released a gameplay video not long ago, showing the environments. We do have some secrets here and there. We're working on a few cool levels that I'm sure people, as soon as they see it, they're gonna like it because they're different. We don't have levels like that out there. I feel. So I would say people are gonna like it later on when we release more details about it. So yeah.
Super fair. I'll let you keep your secrets, but once the game comes out, I'm definitely gonna try it out. And then as
Yeah.
I'm gonna play, I'm gonna say, oh, he made this. He definitely did this. I guess what I really want to ask here is like there are a lot of processes that are iterative. You
Yeah.
try something, you draft, maybe you change a couple of things, and you polish, and you kind of want to go back, right? Do you find yourself minimizing the amount of times you iterate? As in, like, are you kind of like, I know this is the output that I want, so I'm just gonna go straight to that result? Or are you kind of like, let me try this, get the team's feedback, try to build more
Yeah.
on that? Because iterative is extremely important to make like a very unique experience.
Mhm.
But the main criticism behind iteration, which it shouldn't be a criticism, but it's the fact that it takes time, takes assets, takes resources, a lot of energy and effort to actually build something just to find out, okay, maybe I don't need it and I'm going to push it aside. So it is important to get that feedback, important to see how that goes. But what is your balance between iterating this amount of like work versus like, oh, let me like try to like minimize and try to be as efficient as possible? Where do you see yourself in that balance?
Yeah, iteration is really important in game development in general. We do a lot of iterations in level design, and for me, it's a really important balance. Obviously, I get like a narrative beat from the narrative team and the creative director, and then I start like sketching a block out, making an LDD, level design document, and then after I have an idea of what I want to build, I make the sketch and I ask for feedback. I always try to ask for feedback as quick as possible because that's how we iterate. And this is a concept or something that I want to recommend people out there. Try to fail as quick as possible. You don't want to spend too much time on something or a level or a mechanic or something for you to learn at the end that it's not good enough, or maybe you can do it better. Try to fail as quick as possible for you to get feedback, and iterate on that. So to answer the question, yeah, I try to make a sketch, I ask for feedback, and then if they approve it, I continue making tweaks and changes to the level. I start making the block out, I start adding stuff to the level, but I don't like to continue or work on the entire level before getting feedback or suggestions. Because like I mentioned, like maybe you spend too much time on a level, and at the end they don't like what you're doing, and you got to do it all over again. And production is expensive, so you don't want to spend a lot of time on something. So try to ask us a feedback and suggestions as quick as possible for you to have an idea of where you're going.
What a perfect response, because playtesting early is the
Yep.
most important thing to do. You never want to build something for 90 days, then get people to test it, and just to realize,
Yep.
oh, the first thing you ever implemented needs to be reset, and that's like a 20-step dependency.
Yeah.
So
You wasted all that time. I mean, obviously, it's not wasted because you learn experience, and that's
for
what
sure,
matters.
for sure.
But at the end, it's like you're not gonna go with that, and you pretty much spend too much time on something you could have done something else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's
It's
hard.
super critical. Yeah,
It's super really hard or and difficult to know that, because you're probably enjoying the process and you're on flow and have a lot of agency building the lever or something, and then at the end, it's not gonna go, and you have to go back. So yeah, it's really critical.
and that's also the crazy part, because I think there's a terminology known as paper prototyping, which is very interesting because in your case, as a level designer, you can literally sketch what it should look like, which
Yeah,
probably takes, like, of course, you want to like do it efficiently, take your time with it,
yeah,
but like in a speedrunning fashion, you could literally sketch a basic design in like under 10 minutes. Say, oh,
yeah.
here's a page, here's what it looks like. We should have these items here. Oh, this should be the entry point, the ending. Like that's a really nice way to put it. And so, for programmers, it's going to be a little bit more clunky because there's just like so many steps you have to take just to make something jump or
Yeah,
move, right? So that's why prototyping is super important. Paper prototyping in particular is just like the fastest way to get something out there.
yeah,
But again, if you minimize iteration, obviously you're even faster, but you don't know what works until you get the feedback or until you see other players play your game. I think it's also super important to give the controller to another player and just like do
playtesting.
everything
Yeah,
possible to not say anything and just see them hit the wall 20 times. You're gonna be
yeah,
frustrated, but that's the learning point.
yeah.
So I do recognize that your approach is really healthy, really good. I like how the team actually takes the time to give you feedback before you proceed. So that's a really good production hack as a whole. But paper prototyping, ridiculously incredible.
I agree. And when you're pretty much like playtesting the levels with other people or departments, you're gonna get a lot of feedback, a lot of criticism. But that's another thing people have to learn and work. Is the fact that they cannot take that criticism on a bad way. They're trying to
Absolutely.
push the player and the project on a positive side. They want to make the game better. So try not to take the criticism personal. It's more about like how can you improve what you've done, and how can you make it better for players. So you're not making a game for yourself, you're making a game for the people out there, for the audience. So
Absolutely.
start to think it that way. It takes time, because we don't want to kill our babies. That's how we call it. It happens with level design, it happens with programmers. I feel like it happens with every department. So yeah, that's something people, you got to get used to it, because you're going to get a lot of criticism, and try to take it in a positive way. How can you improve, and how can you be a better developer later in the future?
Yeah, and then there's also subjective and then objective criticism. So it's like, subjectively, oh, I don't like the color. It's like, okay, well, whatever. Objectively, oh, this color's too
I
dark. I
agree.
didn't notice it. Like, okay, there's ways to go about it. And I
Yeah.
also do think that it's really good the more times you expose yourself to criticism, the more likely you are to build thicker skin. Because there's just a lot of times where like maybe you feel like you said, maybe it's a personal attack. Maybe you're like, okay, am I a bad developer? Do I get work? Like, it happens, right? But like, I
Yeah.
do genuinely believe, like, yeah, like take every piece of criticism possible, try to filter it out based off of what actually improves, what isn't so good, and then just learn from what people actually want. And so once you get that collective data of like, oh, a lot of players actually prefer the X button to shoot rather than an R trigger. Okay, I should probably, give them the option to either switch or like, prioritize that. But 100%, like I'm completely on the same boat as you when you say, hey, like expose yourself to as much criticism as possible. And honestly, there's I forgot if it was a quote, but like in video games, right, when you find bad guys, right, you're making progress. Right? It's like the
Yeah.
more obstacles you encounter, it's like, oh, I'm getting
The better.
at the end of the
You
level,
get
I'm
experience.
progressing. EXP,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
quite literally, like that's the best translation. Playtesting, criticism, launching, getting your first project out, getting your second one
Yeah.
out, prototyping, sharing, doing as many outputs as possible will just
Hmm.
expose what your weaknesses are, and then you can go ahead and tackle that to improve, become a better developer. And then I also say the more skills you gain, the faster and more efficient you become, which is also something to
I agree.
consider.
I agree.
Which also you don't need that many skills to actually do things quickly, but it's just a little natural bonus for everything. But yeah, it's
Hmm.
just EXP at the end of the day, or experience for the non-gamers. Not kidding, but
Yeah.
So Really,
I,
really cool conclusion there.
I do agree, and actually, I mean, I would say it's a good idea for people out there to start making projects. Maybe, I mean, maybe you're trying to work for a specific studio. You know, you're doing projects to align yourself with the studio and work there at some point in your life. But it's really important for you to work on levels, or it doesn't have to be levels. It could be like mechanics that reassembles that studio. It puts yourself as like if you've been working with the studio for a while, so the people are going to see you like, hey, maybe he's working to collaborate with them in the future, and it gives you like experience. Because if you want to work with the studio wants to see if you're able to do what they do, if you're able to make the type of level they do, the mechanics they do. You want to try to practice that as much as possible so you can have better experience at the when the time gets there for you to work with the studio. So I would say get out there, start making levels or something that reassembles the studio you want to work for, and keep practicing. Expose yourself on social media. Start making levels for LinkedIn, for YouTube. Even if you don't have to turn on a camera and record yourself, it could just be a screen, of yourself just making a level. So the more you expose yourself out there, the more you make levels out there, it would help you out in the future for just in general, like level design and for exposure out there. So that's something that I would recommend, and really critical, because I honestly, I mean, I've seen a lot of videos out there in LinkedIn and all the social medias, but not many people like to do it, and people have to start making videos for them to be exposed out there and to have more opportunities.
This is so funny. I don't have this problem at all, but I've talked to a lot of content creators where before they upload a video, they're like, "Should I even upload it?" It's like, bro, you
Yeah,
already spent so much time. Yeah, just
happens.
press the button. Like it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
But that's a real feeling, right? And I do believe that if you have like that fear or that hesitation of like uploading content, like yeah, you're probably gonna fear rejection or criticism or something that's like
it
halting
always
what
gonna
you're doing,
happen.
right?
It always gonna happen.
100%,
Yeah,
100% happens all the time.
yeah,
Like, bro, I get hate comments that I find very adorable. I'm like, okay, this is good because now I can learn from it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's very, very important. But I truly do believe, yeah, I and it's funny because you just mentioned this kind of at the beginning. Like you said, I just wanted to share my project, see how it goes, and like now you're
Yeah,
building a brand. Now you have a YouTube channel. Now you have things that are
yeah.
going on. You have these great experiences. Your portfolio is growing insanely. You get some really cool professional work coming up. That's actually really cool, right? And then in my case, I was like, yeah, I just want to share things because why not, right? And then I started to learn a lot more. And it's funny because a lot of the design lessons that I've been learning typically come from these criticisms. It's like, oh yeah, so little cool story actually is there's a developer, super cool guy, and I'm actually just gonna shout him out. Eden Dev. He's the guy that made One Step from Eden, one of like
Hmm.
the best indie games out there right now. I love it. It's basically like a Mega Man Battle Network roguelike, right? And I'm
Hmm.
kind of making a game very similar to that, which is the one I'm working here, Another Chance at Happiness. But
Hmm.
he actually played the very first prototype I ever made like years ago, and it was, bro, I got roasted. Okay, I love this dude. He's super cool, right? Like Eden Dev, if you're listening, like we're chill, okay? But he, in the most nice way possible, he goes like, "Hey, your game has like no juice. You have to like fix this. You have to like add these effects." And I'm like, "What is game juice? What does that mean? Like, what like
Yeah.
a terminology you never hear about, right?" And so there was like a point where I started learning and studying more about like the game design process, the
Hmm.
juice, the sound effects, the how to do a camera shake, how to do screen overlays, right? But it's crazy because with all those lessons, right, I applied that to DodgeKing in this case, then I did it to DodgeKing Deluxe, and then the game got better and juicier, and like you started improving.
You
But the
iterate. Yeah.
crazy part is, I would have never improved had I never reached out, right? And so after his impression, which was super cool and everything, I started talking to more developers. I started to get more criticism and such. And now, this is why you have to continue to expose yourself as much as
Yeah.
possible. Whether it's making content for learning lessons, because sometimes I'm teaching lessons, but I get comments as well that say like, "Oh, you forgot to cover this part," or "Oh, what did you mean by this? Can you clarify more?" It's like, okay, cool. These are things that you can continue to use and utilize to keep growing, right? But I am a true believer that everyone should just be uploading content of like what they're working on, regardless if you build a brand out of it or not. It's just going to be an open source of really good feedback that you end up
Yeah.
getting. And one common advice that I heard, which is also kind of like, I don't want to say it's controversial, but it's like a little funny, is a lot of newbie developers should go to like conventions to like network and meet all these people, which is a great thing to do.
Hmm.
But it's also like when you don't have many things to showcase, you don't really have that like ability. Maybe I might be wrong, right? But I really think if you have something to showcase, networking and meeting people in person would be like 10 times easier because you have something to show for it.
Show.
And
Yeah.
so my advice is make content, showcase it, make a portfolio, do something where people can see your work. And now you have like a lever or an excuse to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I mention this is because I was gonna actually ask you, GDC is one of the biggest events that happens, per year, the game development conference, where
Hmm.
a lot of game developers meet up, they share their work, they do networking, they do all these things. And for a long time, it was my goal to actually like go to GDC one day. Ended up going twice. You were also there twice as well.
Yeah.
And I guess I just wanted to ask you, like, one, I know you agree when I say like, oh, more people should like make more content and everything.
Yeah.
But two, do you have an opinion or an approach on like newbie developers entering GDC? Like, is there advice that you would give them?
Yeah. So, and going back a little bit of what you mentioned, I mean, the human being. I mean, we usually enjoy something visual. If we can see something out there, we tend to like it more because we see it. We're visual individuals. So, if you have even a picture or a video or something that you made, it will give you a lot more advantage from other people. Even if you don't have a project, even you just need a video or something to show people, and that can even start conversations. And you could do a lot of networking. So for people out there that want to go to GDC, that by the way, GDC it's really great convention. I can mention like I had the opportunity to work on Bible Exchange because of GDC, and I can talk a little bit more about that soon. Uh, but for people out there, I will definitely recommend like networking on GDC. You don't have to pay the. I mean, I think they changed like the packages and the prices for this year's GDC, but before that, I mean, you had to pay a lot of money. That's one of the things. GDC is really expensive, but you don't have to pay the whole price. You can just pay the expo floor, or maybe the Friday event. And as all you need to do is just do networking. For people out there, maybe you don't have a project, maybe you don't have a video or anything. You can just pay the expo floor, or you can just do networking on the Yerba Buena Park, which is the area outside of the GDC. Even for just going there and talking with people, that will give you an advantage from the rest of the developers out there, because networking, it's really critical in this industry. People maybe don't know how important it is, but it is. It's really important. And going back to how I got my opportunity, it my Uncharted gameplay or video helped me a ton. So it was last year's GDC 2024. I was looking at the expo floor and I saw this company, Bible X Games. And I remember I sent them a message like, "Hey, I noticed you guys are looking for a level designer. I'm the level designer you guys are looking for." Like I was really positive about myself, really confident. And I sent them the message, and then they replied to me like, "Hey, sure, come to our booth and let's talk." And I remember I had the interview with the creative director and the publisher like right there at the moment. I had the interview with the top individuals of the company, and while I was talking with them, I was showing them my portfolio, my projects, and my Uncharted project. And that's what actually caught their attention. My Uncharted project is the thing they saw and noticed. And it's the thing that was like, this guy knows what he's doing. So it helped me a ton. That project helped me a lot. And then after GDC, I stayed in contact with them and stayed in communication, and they gave me the opportunity. So believe it or not, you can get a job at GDC. There are chances that you can get an opportunity after GDC. So again, I will tell people, go to GDC, go to all these networking events, go to Gamescom, go to PAX, to all these networking events and just talk with people. You don't have to showcase anything, just talk with people out there and start making connections, because that's what's going to open the doors for you in the future. And networking, it's really important. Not gonna lie, networking is, I will say, like one of the top things here in the industry. So it's really important, and that's what helped me out there to get the opportunity I have right now.
Completely agree. And I'm not trying to like glaze GDC like, oh, you have to go, because it is expensive.
It
Typically
is,
where Gabriel and I are from, it's a long flight. We have to
yeah.
go to the opposite side of the world
No,
basically.
it's like it's like 10 hours. I don't remember. I mean, and also we
Last
have
time
the
was
daylight.
19 for me because I had to go to New
Oh
York, and
wow,
like it
no,
was
that's
no
insane. That's
no no
insane.
no, it was forever.
And we also, I mean, since we're in Puerto Rico right now, we have AST, so our time is
Yeah.
different. Pacific time is like 3 hours, 4 hours of a difference. So it's a lot. We have to, the trip was really, and it's really expensive as well. Like you're mentioning, Edward, like it's really expensive to go to GDC. Not only the event, but like the food there, the hotels. It's a really expensive experience. We were lucky, and I'm not gonna lie, we were lucky that the Puerto Rican, like the Puerto Rico event here, the PRUDA and LATAM, they help us, giving us scholarships to go there. So I'm always gonna be grateful for that opportunity, because if it wasn't for that, I wasn't gonna be able to go to UTC. I'm not gonna lie, like it's really really expensive. But if you live in San Francisco already, if you're around the area, I would recommend you to go to the Yerba Buena Park and start doing networking.
Yeah, so Gabriel's humble bragging here, this not no no, but honestly, the crazy part is like he did end up getting sponsored to go to GDC, and so that definitely alleviated the financial aspect of it. So congrats on
Yeah,
that. That was a super cool event. But also at the same time, like it doesn't have to be just GDC. It could be any event, like you just mentioned,
yeah,
Gamescom, everything else. The Game Awards is kind of like would kind of be a cool place to bump into people and such. But
yeah.
also, and with GDC in particular, you could literally just walk in the area, Yerba Buena, completely free, talk to all the developers that are going to be there anyway, not a big deal. But what I also do want to mention is like there's also online communities as well. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to like I can understand it's very difficult to like go out in person, meet people like that. And maybe some of us are introverted, totally fine. No, I'm not gonna judge you for that. Do what you gotta do. But I mentioned Eden Dev because I just emailed him. I'm like, oh, this is his email. What if he responds? And he did. I'm like, okay, that's actually cool. Can I email someone else? And then I just kept emailing a bunch of developers. But then also like there's Discord. There's I don't want to say Facebook pages, but like Instagram people that you can follow. And
Twitter,
again,
or I mean, they call it now X.
X, right? Twitter,
Yeah,
X, whatever it was.
yeah,
There's always giant groups that you can go to. Communities. I think there's like the YouTube community posts that are like that's like a new feature recently where like you can just interact with people there.
yeah.
If there's anything you guys might find out is like I reply to every comment in every video I do. So like that's my way of saying like yeah, like you can contact. I should probably make a Discord soon. So well, I'm gonna ask you
And,
more on that actually super soon.
yeah. And that's a good thing actually, because if you're answering those messages, you get you get the algorithm to get
For
more,
sure.
more
Yeah.
people, and it helps our content. So that's good.
Correct, correct. But there's so many ways to contact people. It doesn't hurt to send a message, ask questions, learn about people. Again, I'm talking to Gabriel right now because yeah, I know I bump into him in person every now and then, right? Like he's almost my neighbor. But also it's like, wait, you're doing something that we're kind of aligned. We're kind of on the same boat. We're content creators about game dev. We should probably make some content together anytime soon, right? So this is how it happened. But
Yeah.
you never know. Just ask. Like it's not a bad thing. And so you never know. And I was just actually talking about this with Gabriel super right before the recording, where it's like life just kind of happens sometimes where if you have the tools ready to take opportunities, you can just, take it, right? You never
Yeah.
know. Like I personally haven't met someone that's like, oh, I'm gonna go to this, I'm gonna do like, they have all these goals and such. And like, yeah, they get it eventually, but not in the way that they want to. It's just like, oh, they bumped into this person, then they got that opportunity, then I met another person, then they learned
Hmm.
this skill, then they got transferred, like it's always like something funny. But yeah, you can always end up to your endpoint. It's just that path of how you do it, kind of random, but only based off of the fact that you are ready to take those opportunities, right?
I agree.
So being said, yeah, I wanted to actually briefly touch about talk about Discord community, kind of like how you gather your audience as a whole, what type of things you offer and everything. Like, what was I want to open a Discord super soon. Like, that's something I want to really work on. But what has been the greatest impact of having like that community for you?
So honestly, receiving those positive feedback, and people out there just commenting like they like the content, and helping students or developers out there, that has been like the most impactful thing. Like the thing that I really enjoy and I love. And I could say an example of that, like on this year's GDC, I was in the expo floor and I was just looking at the booth and stuff, and then there were like 4 or 5 students that came to me and they talked to me about, hey, are you the YouTuber, are you the level designer? And I was like, yeah. I was really surprised that they knew about my content, and they asked me a lot of questions, and I was talking with them, and they love the videos that I did, and we took a picture at the end. So those wholesome moments, it's what really motivates me to keep going, honestly, because I really want to push the industry, to keep making content and to keep making awesome stuff out there. If I could help someone out there just a little bit, just by making a video, I'll keep doing it. So for me, that's what motivates me the most. And again, it all started with the YouTube channel, but then I wanted to create like a community. So I started making a Discord channel, and I publish it, or I post it in my YouTube videos, and then people that are there in the Discord, they join the Discord, and we tend to talk here and there. I sometimes I send like some suggestions for other videos that people can see, some books that I recommend. And the point of this is for people to learn, to have a community that people can pretty much ask questions, do game jams or other events that people can get together and learn from each other. This is we're a community, we're a family, so we have to help each other out there. So for me, that's the most important thing, and the thing that I've learned the most, honestly, because I'm pretty much like new to this like Discord stuff, or YouTube, so I'm learning in the process. But so far, I love the journey. And like you mentioned before, maybe you can pivot from one studio to the other here and there, and you're gonna get there at the end. But the most important thing here is to enjoy the process. Don't rush it out there. I know you probably want to go to the studio that you love, or to the biggest studio out there, but don't rush it. You're gonna get there at some point in your life. Just enjoy the process. Enjoy these moments that are you're pretty much hustling to get there. And at the end, when you get to the studio, you're gonna look back and be like, "I did it. It was worth it." So just enjoy the process, and that's one of my biggest suggestions or recommendations for people out there.
That's a very inspirational message, and yeah, I completely agree. And kind of just tapping back about like the motivation and everything,
Yeah,
there is no other fulfilling moment that I can describe when you see a developer complete their game, launch it, or just when you understand that you did an impact and everything. And it's not to be like egotistical or prideful about it, but it's like, oh, okay, I did something where my work was actually valued to the point where it actually impacted somebody for the positive, right? And
yeah,
so the craziest part is, yeah, you're helping people, but then it's like you're making people make video games. You're making people do like things that are cool. Characters now exist in this world. People are now actually making profit. Like there's certain things that you're like, oh, this is real impact, real world measures that you can take. And so even if it's a super simple video of like how to fix a setting, how to do this, how to, basic tutorials, right? Like that's great. Like people learn, they do that. But when you see like that big breakthrough that they go through, and then like there was some type of role that you played into that, genuinely one of the most fulfilling like feelings out there, honestly. And so
I agree.
yeah, I'm a person that always talks bad about motivation. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be motivated. Just do it because you have to do it, right? But I do believe that, yeah, mission orientation is like such an important mindset to have. But if we are going to talk about like motivation for a bit and everything, like seeing one person succeed and then knowing that you can do another person and keep going and just like keep building that up and everything,
Yeah.
100% has to be like another fuel to the fire to just keep pushing as much work as possible.
Yeah, we're making art, so I mean, it's really important to, I mean, love what you're doing, love the process, and then we're motivating people out there. It's we're making art pretty much. So that's my biggest suggestion, honestly. And not many people think about it. Again, we tend to rush stuff, and that's normal in human beings. We want to go to the finish line as quick as possible, but just enjoy the process. Yep, there you go. Fast forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. But
Yeah,
yeah, and what's funny too, I was also talking about this with another developer, was what is speed, does high speed equal low quality? And no, not necessarily, right? You can
yeah,
actually, if you design things properly, and then if you make the decisions to like align good design with good execution, then you get like faster results and such. But ultimately, yeah, you don't want to rush your career either, right? Like I always say, launch your game, but then launch your second, then launch your third. Always try to make sure you launch as many as possible so that you can understand the gaps of like how to do marketing, how to actually run a Steam page, how to actually complete your project, how to actually scope, like bigger picture things, so that your milestones of like actually getting to like the biggest goal that you want at the end becomes way
yeah,
more achievable when you just like take those giant steps. So
yeah,
completely agree with what you're saying here.
yeah.
I guess the next thing that I kind of wanted to briefly talk about here, we're talking about skills, we're talking about like how to, become a better developer as a newbie. Networking is super important and everything. And I don't want to use the word newbie. I think that's a wrong term to use here. But like maybe you're new, maybe you don't.
Startup people.
Oh yeah, yeah. And maybe you're a developer that's like, oh, I haven't even started. I used to be someone that I didn't even want to develop games because I was like, that's too risky, right? And
Mhm.
with the market, with all these crazy things going on nowadays, and the probability of indies just actually succeeding and everything being at like an all-time low because of just volume and everything, it is something that sounds discouraging, but genuinely like it's a process, right? Like there's a statistic that came out like a while ago where it says like 83 or 85% of all developers only launch one game, and that's considering developers that actually do make it to the point where they do launch games, and then like only 12% launch two games, five launch three, one launches four, and then like a small percentile where like they launch more than four games going forward. And if you correlate that with the medium gross of like how much they actually make and everything, it's typically like the 3 to 10 range of like people that make like a ridiculous amount and everything. Of course, there's those
Mhm.
one hit wonders that we see all the time, but the consistency part is like ridiculously important, right? I
Mhm.
say this because regardless if you're new to the industry, if you are a veteran, if you've been working and networking, if you've been doing everything possible, I think the most important skill in this industry has to be the consistency for you just to continue working on projects no matter what.
Mhm.
Eventually, you're going to hit something that gets a high. Maybe you go from high to low, maybe you go from low to high. But the whole point is like you have to just continue to accumulate that experience no matter what, because that will always benefit you for your next project no matter what.
I
That's
agree.
my recommendation. Do you have a recommendation where you believe that like there's an underrated skill, or is there something that developers should focus more on regardless of whatever stage they're in their development?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to say same as you. Like consistency is really important, and I can bring an example of like my videos, for example. When I started, I wasn't doing it. I was doing the videos just because, just for fun and just to put it out there, just for people to see them. But I wasn't thinking about numbers or anything. And at first, it was, you as someone that makes content, it kind of hurts because you see that your video got like maybe 10 views, 20 views, 30 views, but you don't see it like that. You gotta just be consistent and keep making videos. And then when you start seeing like the numbers, you start feeling better, and you keep going and going and going. So yeah, consistency is really important, and I would say the passion. Not many people think about it like that. Like if you have a passion for a specific studio, try to make a project uh similar to what they do. Like I mentioned before, try to make something that reassembles what they do in their games. And if you have the passion for that game, if you have the passion for the studio, for the project, you're going to do a lot better compared to people that just doing it just because. So passion is something that I would say that people need to focus on and dedicate a lot of time, because passion is really important. It's what moves the projects and the success further. So passion, consistency, dedication, it's really important. And discipline, obviously. If you're disciplined, same as consistency, it will help you a ton in your career.
And I also just want to pick on that one more time because like consistency is important. But the reason why I want to bring this up, and it sounds super funny, but I've recently started a reading habit where I'm just like reading a little bit more often and such. And
Yeah.
I really think that's an underrated aspect to development where, reading design books, reading how the business side of things work, that's very important and critical to keep in mind.
Hmm.
Book recommendation. I don't know if I fully recommend this book just yet, but I do want to do a major takeaway. There's this one book I'm reading right now called From Good to Great. Really, really good. It basically talks about like how companies like go from normal and stable versus like the ones that actually have breakouts and everything. And
Yeah.
the main like takeaway that I have right now is there's two things. The consistency. I can't speak. The consistency part is super critical because again, if you're able to have a long track record, that gives you viability, that gives you lessons that you learned and everything. But interestingly, and this is the one thing that I'm starting to learn, um, even as like I say this a lot in the consultation calls, but I also have to apply this a little bit more often, is the reduction of distractions. I'm the first one to tell you, oh, like don't do everything. Literally do one system at a time. Try to focus on one thing at a time. But great companies, according to this book, according to this research, have this one thing where they recognize that if they can only focus on one particular product, one particular pipeline, one particular system that has been proven to work, you should like triple down on that resource rather than kind of expand. You can do expansion later based off like, oh, like this product has premiums, and then you can go ahead and like build that up and everything, and you can obviously do that. But it should never be like multiple products. It should just be like one source, and then like try to expand that source onwards. Best example, right? Like if you had a marketplace, right? Like yeah, your products, you're gonna have like a bajillion products and everything, but the main source is the marketplace as a whole. Where's that marketplace gonna go? Is it online? Is it available? How does it help people, etc. Right? And so for games, there's that one advice where it's like, oh, try to make small games, right? And I always say I don't like that advice. Like you can make small games. I think the right word is make small scoped games, as in like not that
Hmm.
many features, but your game can be long, it can be huge and everything. But I do think distractions hold back a lot of developers. But more importantly, in addition to distractions, features and overscoping and just having too many things going on, right? So do you have a opinion on people that overscope, or like have you struggled with that before where you're like, I just want to add this, I want to add that, you just keep you know doing this Frankenstein of buildings like, oh, I can't wait to add more, like have you been through that struggle before?
Yeah, and now that you mentioned distraction, it's really funny. It's even harder for people that work remote. I do work remote, and wow, there's a lot of distractions. It's really complicated because again, you have to, you work remote, you have your house, your computer, you have your phone, you have a lot of distractions out there. So one of the things that I recommend for people out there is just, for example, have your phone, put it on the do not disturb, just put it
Yeah.
out there or throw it away. Just close the other, like the windows and stuff, and just focus on what you have to do there. You have a limited amount of time, because the issue with that is that once you feel like you have the entire day to do their tasks, but then it gets to a point that you want to dedicate 12 hours a day. So that's a problem, and this happens to a lot of people out there that work remote or just work on their projects. So it's important to set deadlines or limits. You don't want to work more than a certain amount of time, because then you're gonna be in this endless loop, and you're gonna do it over and over again, and then it's gonna be harder for you. So that's one of the things. Put limits out there. Just shut your phones and, and focus on your work. And then based on the question again, can you repeat again the
Yeah,
question you
like
asked me about?
have you been in the position where you overscoped like crazy, and then like how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot. It used to happen before a lot when I started in the industry, because I always want to make big levels or great levels, and you always think, oh, this mechanic can work here. Maybe I could do this mechanic here and there. I feel like the most important thing is to have a plan, to organize yourself and follow that plan as best as possible. And obviously, if you're working on a AAA company or on a bigger company, you have producers, so you can ask them questions and they can help you, like, do like the deadline and plan it out better. But if you're just working by yourself, working on projects and stuff, it's important to make a plan. You can just open a Trello, it's free, just make some tasks there, open a Jira or something, and just plan it out before you start working. It's important to follow a plan. And I know you want to make maybe a great level and you want to make a lot of mechanics and stuff, but don't overscope. Again, do something simple, fail as quick as possible, and then you keep iterating over and over again. That's my biggest suggestion, because then if you overscope, you're gonna dedicate a lot of time to a level, and then that's not healthy for the industry or in general, for your health in general. So it's good to just make a plan and go with that, and then ask for feedback and suggestions, and just repeat over and over again.
Sounds like you're describing road mapping, which is something I
Yeah.
kind of just preach every video. Hey guys, you should roadmap your game. It's super critical. Yeah, I completely agree with you at that point. But yeah, like organization is, it might be boring, right? Because you have to sit down and think, okay, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? And then you get excited, but then you add too much. But there's so many ways to just like, again, keep yourself in this like box. And again, not to limit you or anything, but like that's how you produce. That's how you get as many things as possible within a quick amount of time frame, right? Like it's super critical to do that.
Yeah.
And then
I agree, and you actually have that in your videos. And I was gonna say, I mean, you also do you have any suggestions for people out there that just starting out with roadmaps and planning like strategies? And if you do so, like, what can you recommend or suggest them
yeah,
to
so
work with
interesting
them?
you say that because I have a video about how to roadmap. I think it's called baby steps for road mapping. So like literally, if you're a first time dev, like do this right. But
Yeah.
literally, the conclusion is, hey, you have, and every single gameplay loop you will ever play can be broken down in 3 steps all the time. And so what you really want to do is just figure out what those three mechanics or like core ideas are, and then literally just like make a box out of it of like, okay, if let's say I had Super Mario, right? I'm jumping, I'm walking, and I'm collecting power ups, for example, right? Those are the three main things that you do. Okay, what features will you build that complement that, but also like what is it like, what features can you add that don't like make the game super complicated or disrespect that core gameplay loop? For example, if you said, oh, I have a power up where I have a jet, right? Okay, well now you have a flying mechanic. Now you have something that it's not jumping based, it's not collecting. That's why the fire flower works really well, right? You press an
Yeah.
extra button, you shoot fire, that's it. It's not complicated, right? But the idea is break down your gameplay loop into those three cores, make a list of features that could support that, but also another key, never go over 12 features. And the crazy part is when we talk about like a settings menu, pause menu, how to change your volume, those are three features we're talking about. So like you have to be very careful with how many things you actually put in your game. So I would even say like, hey, of the 12, four of them are already dedicated to your pause menu. Like you pause, volume, control settings, full screen window mode, okay, now you have 8 features left to work on your game. In that pragmatic mindset where you're thinking, I don't have any resources to play around, that's where like the creative part comes in, because now you have to like play carefully with your resources, but also now you realize, oh, I really don't need that many things to build the actual like giant game that I actually want to build,
Mhm.
right? Now, granted, if you have a team, if you have a budget, if you have a bigger project, a bigger scope, yeah, like you're gonna want more than 3 features. You want a more complicated gameplay loop, totally fine, right? But for every developer that's starting off, your gameplay starts off with three little things. Keep it under 12 features, and then give yourself that deadline of like even 30 days. 30 days is enough to like do something out of that, right? And
Mhm.
I will always say this: even if you cannot complete your game in 30 days, the amount of progress you're going to make by the time you reach day number 30 is going to be way more than what would happen if you didn't put a deadline.
Mhm.
So that's something to consider.
It's like saying, I mean, it's better to start and do something in those 30 days than not doing anything. So you're going to learn either way. You're going to learn a lot through the process. So that's a really good suggestion and tips and tricks over there, Edward. I'm going to put the video down in the description for people to see it and for them to have a look at it, because I feel like that's really important. Like people out there going back again, like people sometimes have this huge scopes and they want to do a lot of things and a lot of mechanics in their game and project, and that's not a good thing. You gotta make a plan, you gotta make a roadmap, and then try to follow that as best as possible, because it could be easy to for you to to skip the roadmap and start making stuff here and there, and that's not the point. It's good to follow that roadmap as best as possible, talk with producers, talk with the other departments, and just follow that for you to hopefully succeed and make that project as quick as possible.
Yeah. So this leads me to this ultimate question that I kind of had here, where you're a busy level designer, you're running content, you're working a job, like there's so many things going on, right? But like, I don't know what would happen if I said, what if you and I did a 90-day challenge, right? What do you think about that?
I like challenges. I'm not gonna lie. I like challenges. I like to challenge myself. So I'm excited. Tell me, what do you have in your head right now? What do you have in mind?
100% between you and me, superhero simulator. That like you already have. Think about it. Think about it. You're a dude. You're like a mutant, right? Whatever. You become Spider-Man, and then through maybe like getting weapons or abilities, whatever, you can become like a Nathan Drake type of archetype. Maybe you become into like a Wolverine archetype because you have all the tools basically. So you kind of just can just mesh it all together. But we call it superhero simulator because like it's just like a sandbox game where like you just destroy things and see how it goes while like emulating superpowers and such. I don't know. That's like the first thing that came in mind because I was like, you have all these tools, you have all these cool
Yeah.
levels. I genuinely wondered the other day, like if we just kind of meshed all of that, gave it a nice settings menu, maybe a couple like other levels to design, a boss, like kind of scope it into like a normal game and everything. Could that be something that you can commercially launch in the future?
I agree.
And I thought about it and I was like, you have the tools, if you need help with production, you know who to call. But I was thinking about it and I was like, well, if I pitched you that idea, superhero simulator, would you possibly be down for that?
It kind of sounds like a game jam or like a level design jam. And again, I love challenges, so I like the idea. I was gonna say, I mean, for this, we level designers, we celebrate October and we call it Blocktober. So it's the
Yes.
month that we make like level designs and we showcase like blockouts for people out there. And one of the things that I was working on during this month was a blockout for Wolverine, because I mean they released the trailer not too long ago, and man, it looks really good. So I was like, what if I make like a blockout for Wolverine with the mechanics and stuff? So I'm actually more excited than ever to make something about superheroes. So this caught me out of surprise. So I like the idea. I like it, and I'm up for challenges. So
Definitely. We can
the
definitely talk about
audience,
this offline and such, but I've been
yeah,
watching that for a while. I'm like, you have content, you have everything. Let's just
the,
make the systems. But we could even like get it out in a month based off of like how hard you work. It's like,
yeah.
oh, can we do a 30-day challenge? Like,
We're talking about the roadmaps here and deadlines, so it's a good thing to just follow that roadmap and do it as quick. I mean, not as quick as possible, but as in the deadline we set up at the end. So
Absolutely.
it makes all like sense with the topic we're talking right now. So
Yeah.
I agree.
And I apologize if I'm oblivious to this, but did you launch the block video about Wolverine, or was that not launched yet?
No, no, no. I started working on the blockout. I Same thing as I did with Spider-Man level.
Okay.
Because the character controller of Spider-Man, I always knew that I wanted to do a level about Spider-Man, but it was kind of difficult to find like a character controller out there. So I did some research. I was lucky I found something out there, and I did the animations, or how do you call this? Like I took the animation from another project, but I put it on Unreal Engine 5, and then as soon as I had that there, I did the level design. So I did the
Gotcha.
same thing here with Wolverine. So I found the character model, I found the animations, and I just put it here in Unreal Engine 5, and I started making some quick blockouts or a gym, what we call in level design. A gym is an area that we set up like the metrics, ladders, cover points, walls, etc. And then we test mechanics there. So I set up a gym for the Wolverine project, and I started working on that, but I never finished it because I don't know. I was kind of busy last month, so I didn't have a lot of time to work on projects, and I was also
Yeah.
doing videos. But it's something that I have in my backlog or something for me to work. And now that you mentioned superheroes, so it gets me really excited to work on a different project like that.
I'm just saying some B-roll of that clip would be insane. And also for those that don't know, I did talk to Gabriel about Wolverine. I did see his progress. Like I said, I'm asking if you uploaded it yet by the time of this recording. Not yet. Cool.
No, no,
Sorry for
yeah.
spoiling the secret, guys. He's working on a Wolverine. It's super hype, right? So really excited to see you share more footage of that. Or
Yeah.
maybe we hide it and just commercially launch it, right? Little mock up, So we'll see how that works. But yeah,
Yeah.
I did see the footage that you showed me, obviously the day that we had that conversation, and like
Yeah.
genuinely looked insane. The fact that you could do flips, you could change animations based off of like how many steps you were at, or like the elevation
Yeah.
of like when you drop, the attacks, the combos. It's just like this is what level design is. You take gameplay, but you elevate it with the environment. It's just that's literally the fundamentals. And so it's so easy to drop the character controller in an empty plane and say, oh, this is fine, but like it's not fun. It's 10 times more impressive when you have things to interact with and such.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a really good video you should make, how to make a gym, because like that's true, that is a concept you guys use for testing character controllers as a whole, and that's very similar to the debug room whenever you're working like an RPG or like
Yeah.
any type of prototype. But I would love to see you write a video called like how to make a gym for Unreal, whatever, and then like talk about like important fundamentals, like okay, this is how you do ladders, this is how you do trampolines, this is how you do wall jumping, this is how you do swinging. That would be super beneficial for a lot of developers.
I agree actually, and thank you for the suggestion. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I learned about gyms back when I was taking the CGMA class. It was like 2 3 years ago, and it was really interesting. It opened my mind. Like, hey, so this is what we call gyms. Okay, so this is how we make the metrics. Because before taking the class, I was making levels, but I didn't have like the idea or the concepts of how important it is to have metrics, have like everything set up exactly like you want. Because if you start making stuff randomly without
Yeah,
having those instructions, it's like building Legos. If you start making
literally.
Legos without instructions, it's gonna be a pain later on. So gyms are really important, and I would suggest every level designer out there to start working on gyms. That's the first step you do before you work on level design. So that's a really good suggestion for a video, because I think like not many people know about gym, about like what a gym is. So actually, I can make a video about that actually, and talk a little bit more into details. Right now in our project in Bible X, we used to call them labs,
Yeah, yeah,
laboratories, and
yeah.
we used to make these levels where we test specific mechanics or specific interactions in the game, and we test them out there, and we put them on a build, and the entire team play test them there, so kind of like the same terminology, like a gym, like lab. It's just the same, but it all depends how you want to
For
how you
those
want to
key
see it.
aspects, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
part of the prototyping. Like, of course, like you want to make sure you have these items that work, but the gym in particular focuses on like the perfecting the
metrics.
metrics
Yeah.
of the level design part, like a Lego kit, like you said. I think that's the perfect way to describe it, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of the if you take a look at the level design packages that you find in the Unreal Marketplace or in Unity, a lot of them have like this gym or this
Yeah,
showroom where you have all the assets there and you have like the metrics, because it's really important to have that set up there before you start working on a project. So they do it for you pretty much, but again, if you're working on your own project and you have artists, you're probably not going to have a gym. You have to make it yourself. So it's really important. That's the first step when you're working on level design. Make a gym as soon as you have some assets. It could just be a blockout. You could just have a cube and have it like, I don't know, a meter and a half. That's I don't know. That's the door. You could have cover points, just 1 meter. And start setting the metrics there, because you want to have that ready before you start working on the levels per se. It's going to be a lot easier. Trust me.
100%. And you've mentioned this already a lot, but like you are particularly very proficient with Unreal in particular, right?
Yeah.
Do you recommend that for like a lot of beginner and developers?
So it depends on the type of project you want to do, or you want to work on. For example, I started working on Unity back when I was at Full Sail. I dedicated a few years to learn Unity. I do love Unity, specifically for mobile games. So if you're working on a mobile project, I would recommend Unity more than Unreal. Not because it's better, but because it's a little bit more friendly, user friendly,
Absolutely.
compared to
Absolutely.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And also for performance wise, I mean, Unreal is really heavy,
It's
in terms
super
of like
heavy.
it's
You don't want to
such
put
a
it on your phone.
huge, yeah, it's such a huge engine, and there's a lot of details and stuff that you don't, you know. I'm not saying Unreal, I'm not saying Unity it's like the easiest engine out there,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's compared to Unreal, it's a little bit simpler or easier if you just want to work on mobile games. So Unity for mobile games, and then Unreal Engine, I love it because the mechanics. I feel like I use blueprints a lot, so blueprints are a lot easier, at least for me, when you're working on scripting events compared to C++ or C sharp. It doesn't mean that you cannot learn C++ or C sharp. You can, but if you just want to prototype something quick and show it out there, it's a lot easier to just use blueprints or visual scripting compared to other languages out there. So I like Unreal because of the simplicity of how quick can I make a mechanic or a level and just show it to people out there. And it's also really important because it's a massive engine. I will say almost everyone is using Real Engine out there. So if you have the experience with the engine already, it gives you 100% more of an advantage compared to other engines because studios out there are using Unreal. So for example,
Precisely. There are
see,
more studios, AAA, AA, that use Unreal as a whole. Yeah.
yeah. So for example, CD Projekt Red, they're using Unreal Engine 5 for The Witcher 4. So that's another thing you can do. Like for example, if you love CD Projekt Red and you want to work on the new The Witcher 4, I would suggest make a quick level or a narrative request in Unreal Engine 5 and just show it to people. That will put you in an advantage because you're using an engine, which is a tool that they have right now. You understand it. You're pretty much using like mechanics and systems that they are using right now, and again, it will give you an advantage compared to other engines. So I tend to use an engine or a tool that I feel like it would put me in an advantage when I'm working on a project. I always tend to do it like that. And I learned Unreal Engine back when I was taking the CGMA class. So this is a funny story, but I mean, I didn't know anything about Unreal before taking the CGMA class. So I challenged myself. I remember I subscribed to the class. I was doing like the first step or whatever, and then I said to myself, okay, I have a week to learn Unreal Engine because the class starts next week. How am I going to do this? So I made this plan or this roadmap for me to learn the basics of Unreal Engine 5, and then I was going to start a class. So I challenged myself to do it in a week, and then while I was working on the class, I kept learning more and more and more. So again, it just depends on like the type of challenge you want to do to yourself, and if you just want to learn a new engine or not. But in my opinion, it's an engine that's really flexible. It has its pros and cons, and it's a good engine to start if you just want to make level design and showcase to people out there.
Diamonds are made out of pressure, is what I'm hearing, and that's
But yeah,
absolutely true. Absolutely.
yeah,
I do. I'm a firm believer that any problem that you find yourself in the middle of is an advantage for you to learn how to get out of it.
yeah.
So yeah, if you don't know how to do Unreal stuff, okay, learn, like, deal with it. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
it is what it is. Like that's kind of how life works, right? Like, oh, I have an emergency, I have a flat tire, I'm stuck in the, okay, deal with it. Like,
That's how you learn basically
yeah,
in real life in general because you have to survive. So when you put yourself on those risky situations or in that tough situations,
yeah,
that's how you're gonna learn. So again, I recommend Unreal Engine 5 is a really good engine. It has a lot of tools and it's really good for level design.
yeah.
So yeah, just go for it. I will recommend it 100%.
That's an amazing suggestion. Funny because I'm probably like the Unity guy where I'm like, hey guys, you should definitely use Unity. But Unity is definitely more indie. It's definitely like, yeah, if you're on your own, if you want to just like go a little bit deeper into C sharp, that's the place that you want to go to. There are a bunch of great rendering pipelines, so like you can make a beautiful looking game in Unity. I just think Unreal is the place to like have the most proficient uh, game that looks beautiful, right? And then
I agree. Yeah.
Godot it's been growing a lot recently too, so that's something
Yeah.
that's like really interesting to look at. But having skills and access to all of them is really important fundamentally. But ultimately, choose the engine that you're most comfortable with, explore it as much as possible, try to do as much with it, and then just leverage going forward. That's
I,
honestly
I
the
agree.
way
I was going to ask you that question actually. What was the engine that you were using? You mentioned Unity,
yeah.
but there are many engines out there. I mean, there's Godot, there's Unity, Unreal Engine, and many, many more.
The
And
Bunny Graveyard used the Game Maker too, was it?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of tools. I know. I know he. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, it's a developer here from Puerto Rico that make a really cool game. It's on the Nintendo
really.
Switch. I'm also. I can put some clips or B rolls here on the screen, but he made a really cool project, and I think he used that engine actually, which is really really impressive. Of all the things you could do with other engines out there, because Unreal Engine, honestly, it's again the way they market it, it's like the biggest engine out there. But again, there are a lot of engines that you could use. You don't have to stay with Unreal Engine 5. So yeah,
Yeah, your choice. At the end of the game, your goal is to make a game. Doesn't matter how it's made, as long as you actually do it. So
yeah, just enjoy the process. I mean, just have fun, enjoy the process, and try to always challenge yourself to learn new tools. If you feel like you're comfortable with something, how do you get out of that comfort zone? If you're using Unreal Engine 5 and you want to learn how to model, then you start using the modeling kit, because Unreal Engine 5 has a modeling tab that you can pretty much use like models, and you can model yourself some of the assets here and there. So if you don't know how to use that, start working on modeling, because you're going to use it a lot for when you're blocking out levels. So again, try to get out of your comfort zone, use things that you feel like you can learn. And aside from the engines, I also wanted to mention there are other engines, but specifically for a game. So, for example, The Witcher has an in-game engine that you can pretty much go and look for it in the Steam. So if you want to practice on these other engines, you can do it. Call of Duty, I think it has like this own engine. You could also work over there. I think it's called Radiant. I'm not sure.
The
Then
Unreal Fortnite engine is like it actually
r-
makes a bunch of games like
yeah,
ridiculous ones too.
you can make a game, yeah, in Fortnite, and you have all the assets there. You have all most of the mechanics. So honestly, there are no excuses. You can make a fun game or something cool out there and learn through the process, so try to use these tools as much as possible. And again, the most important thing is to use a tool that can assimilate it, or you can pretty much use in the studio you want to work at. If you know they use Unreal Engine 5, try to use it as much as possible, or at least practice on that engine so you can have experience there. And when you apply later on to the studio, they see that you have the experience with that engine. That's really important, and it's going to help you a lot through the interviews and through the process, I will say.
Absolutely. I think the main takeaway from this entire podcast is just get ready to be uncomfortable. Try to stay in that area because that's literally where you can grow the most. Again, we kind of just like started off as like, oh, let's just share our stuff. And now we're like, okay, we have to like keep sharing. We got to keep being under pressure. But that's where progress and growth is made at the end of the day. And I
Hmm.
really do believe like if you're a developer looking to make a game quickly, if you're a developer learning that wants to learn more game design, or just in general just wants to like learn more things in general, I genuinely believe you should check out Gabriel's channel for sure. He has a bunch of useful insights and advice. And then if there's anything I could offer in terms of like production and such, I would also recommend you guys checking out my channel as well. But
Hmm.
being said, I think we kind of have like a bunch of questions that we were primarily answering here. Was there any more questions or comments that you had in mind that you wanted to ask as we wrap up here?
I wanted to ask you about your project because you mentioned you have DodgeKing and you're also
Right,
working on your next project. Like,
right.
tell the audience a little bit about like what you're working on right now, a little bit of your experience. What can you tell them, and what Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm gonna suspiciously move to the side here. But
this.
so the story is, I made Dodge King in 3 months, made a Steam page out of it, and like that was like a very weird game. Okay, like it was my first time doing a game in 90 days. It was really interesting. The thing is, I made Dodge King Deluxe, which was the sequel. And the thing I need to clarify this because like everyone's like, hey, you said you made 2 games, but there's only one page. I uploaded DodgeKing Deluxe over DodgeKing, like the original page. So you don't have access to DodgeKing 1, but you can get DodgeKing Deluxe by using the same page. That Deluxe was made in 90 days as well. And Deluxe, in my opinion, is a bit like a bajillion times better. Okay, like I don't want a single soul to see the first one. All right, because like that was like we don't talk about it. Okay, but Deluxe is like actually fun. It's good. It fixes a lot of design issues that I had with the first game. And you would assume that because I'm recycling a lot of assets, it's like, oh, is it like an update? You would assume that's the case, but I made it from scratch. I used a different build, and then like when I was done, I was like, should I re-upload it? Terrible decision, by the way. Never do that because for marketing, you basically are advertising a dead page, so you don't have velocity, you don't have the Steam algorithm favoring you. But it's interesting because even though I uploaded the second game over the first page, I actually was still able to like make a profit out of it. Like it sold a lot of copies. It ended up uh, it made me a profitable studio basically based off of like the metrics that I'm using. And I was like, okay, really weird. But it confirmed that, good game design is something that's really important and launching a lot of titles actually helps you out with that. So what's funny is, I've been making the channel for a while, for over a year. I've been helping other developers. Little hint or secret, end of the year, I plan on doing like a little showcase of all the clients I've been helping with. And I think that's going to be very interesting. But I also realized there was a phase where I was like really, really busy. And also, there's this booth that was coming up that I signed up for a year ago, and I completely forgot that I said, "Oh yeah, my next game, I'm gonna present it there." So I had like 20 days to make a demo for Another Chance at Happiness, which is the game I'm currently working on.
Mhm.
Technically, I made an old build. It was actually one of the first. It's the first game I ever like made on Unity, right? Another Chance, but old, outdated systems didn't work, super buggy, terrible performance. Literally, it was like a gym or like a sandbox game of like, oh, what it would be like to learn how to develop and everything. So what
Right.
happened was when I was making that build for the booth, I just new page, new Unity, new everything, recycled a lot of like the animations because that's like the visual part that like mattered the most. But then like all the systems were redone, everything was done from scratch, and within 20 days we have like a tech demo that works, right? Soon I want to publish the demo on like itch so that I get more feedback. Again, going back to that the play test process to see how people reacted, if they like it, dislike it, what I can improve, fix, improve. Those are the things that I'm working on. But Another Chance at Happiness is basically a twin stick shooter roguelike. Um, super heavily based off of Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Star Force. It has a lot of Pokemon elements where like you can capture enemies and put them on your team, and then they can fight with you. And depending on how many members you have on your team, you kind of change your forms and your attributes. So more on that later, because I have like this giant like marketing pitch that I'm gonna like polish and say, hey guys, this game is basically Pokemon on steroids, but you're shooting people, something like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's a game where you don't have to kill anyone. So kind of like Undertale meets Pokemon meets Mega Man. It's kind of how it is.
And I
And
remember I played your demo back a few weeks ago when you sent it to
okay,
me.
yeah, the new one, yeah. And
Yeah.
your feedback was extremely useful. In fact, you mentioned, hey, you should do the 8-way shooting, and I'm
Yep.
finding a way to incorporate that because I'm like, maybe I do that at the end of the day. I found another way to make it like more comfortable,
Hmm.
but I don't know, the 8-way seems good, so I'll keep looking into that.
Mm.
But being said, if you're watching this on a desktop rather than mobile, right? There's like the QR code here. Obviously, the links will be on the description and everything, but like this is
Yeah,
the
I can
cheesiest
also
way
do
to
like a
advertise.
B-roll. I can do a B-roll on your screen, and I can add the
Awesome.
QR code so you can just send me that later, and I can just
Yeah,
add it on the screen. So
cheesy way to advertise, but like again, we want to make sure that we get more feedback and expose ourselves as much as possible to continue growing and everything. So that's my
yeah,
project basically. And to be fair as well, I also want to ask you as well. I know you're working on Bible X as well, but is there any other projects besides Superman Simulator that we might that we might work on soon?
so wow, I will say I'm really focused on Bible List right now, like on
Yeah,
my like main company and studio. I do try to work on some projects on the side. I don't have a lot of time, so it's really complicated right now. But I always try to challenge myself and do something different. So aside from the 90-day challenge, I would say I want to work on some stuff here and there. We could talk about that later.
absolutely. Yeah.
But
I think
yeah, again,
I'm super excited to work with you. If you actually say, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, yeah, I will roadmap it. It'll be super hype. And then even more content for both of us to share and be like, hey, look how we did in 90 days, So like that'd be
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
yeah, we could showcase the people, and then we can show it on BDC or other events. I mean, that will be
Absolutely.
really, really cool. Right now, like again, I'm really busy with a lot of like the content here or my
Yeah.
my job, and it's really complicated for me to take some time, to do other stuff. But I do like challenges, so yeah,
Yeah,
let's
let's
see
just
how
drop a
let's see what
deadline.
happens.
Yeah, let's just drop a deadline. Let's do this. Let's make the Steam page, like already invest in it, and then say
Eh,
launching January, and like there we have no excuse. You can be busy, but you have to make time. Like that's what we're gonna do.
yeah,
I'm
for,
kind
for
of
for the for the audience that's seen this, I mean, this is what we've been talking through the whole podcast. Make a 90-day or a certain deadline. We put it out there, and we challenge ourselves to do it on that deadline. So we're putting into practice what we've been talking through the video. So but we deserve at least a like, and also a subscribe, just in case. Uh, but yeah, I'm excited to hear more about the project, and obviously to see what happens, or what's the final result. So
sounds like a plan. Well, Gabriel, it's been super great. This is a great talk and everything. Once again, were there any more questions or comments you would like to ask?
I would say, I mean, we did a really good job just talking about the industry in general. We can make like a highlight of talking about the most important stuff here, but the most important in my head is just to talk about the development process of both of us, and obviously giving some ideas or some tips and tricks of how people can work with level design, and speed up their process, and obviously be success in their career. For me, the networking part, it's really important, and doing content, it's really important, and not many people see that, but it is. So I wanted to talk about that right here in this video or this podcast. So I really hope people, find that really positive, or they like what we say here, because again, it's really important, and it's going to help you in the industry or in your career in general. So yeah.
Absolutely. And to be as clear as possible, Gabrielle and I are just here to help you guys out as much as possible. Our content is free. You can literally just watch whatever you believe helps. We do level design, we do general game advice, networking, how to prepare for conferences, production. And again, you can always reach out to me personally and my channel, or Gabrielle's Discord as well, to like go ahead and like ask him more questions and such. So we're very receptive to that, really excited and eager to meet you, and just help speed up the process of any game that you guys are developing. And yeah, we're all in this together. We're all in a community. We all want to see each other, prosper and
Mhm.
succeed and such. So if there's anything we can do to help you guys out, please feel free to reach out.
I agree. I'm gonna put Edward's social media account below, so you guys can reach out to him and ask him questions. And then for me, I'm always available on LinkedIn, so you guys can look for me there. I have my Discord like channel there in my YouTube channel, so you guys can just join Discord, ask questions. I always upload videos there, and obviously some books that I recommend that you guys can look into it if you want to learn more about level design. I also have a Patreon's account that you guys can just follow if you will need like like a monthly assistance or help. And I also have a Ko-fi account. So if you guys need like a mentorship, a LinkedIn review, a portfolio, resume review, make sure to check that out. Uh, Again, I'm always happy to help everyone out there. So yeah, I'm gonna put all those accounts here in the comments. So make sure to check that out.
Awesome. Looking forward to our next update and such. But this has been absolutely a giant pleasure to just have the time to talk to you and everything. And yeah, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell notification icon. I never say that in my videos, but I'll say it for this one. So there's that. But yeah, honestly, this has been great.
Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for seeing this. Bye bye.
Take care.